What's up, El Paso? I'm here with Chef Rulis, one of my most favorite chefs here in El Paso, and we're at his brand new spot, Chingon Chow. I love the name. Thank you so much for inviting me out, but we wanted to come in and kind of give you guys the 411, where to come, what he's serving, his inspiration. If you guys, and you should, if not, you're living under a rock, get up, get out, go local. But if you know Chef Rulis, everybody knows Chef Rulis' cuisine is amazing. No matter what it is, you're gonna freaking love it. So this is just an extension. This is part 2, yeah, yes. Right? I love it so much. So I'm gonna turn the camera around so we can go on and get more information on who, what, when, where, why, and you guys come in, fill these seats, support local, and tell them I sent you. All right, 1 second. Woo! All right, Chef. Let me adjust. Okay, so first off, we're here on the east side.
Yes.
I'm used to downtown, then the west side. Now we're on the east side. Lucky East Siders. You guys have got, like, he heard your what is it? Your request? Yes. And he answered the call. I love it. So tell me all about Chingon Chow.
So Chingon Chow is a project that kind of started taking life about 12 years ago.
Okay. 12 years ago?
12 years ago.
Okay.
That's when the name mysteriously popped up in my head.
Okay.
And I fell in love with the name. It's so fun to say, and that's kind of where it all started. I was already doing a lot of Asian and Mexican fusion, but then as time went on, and as I learned more about our local history, that's when the Chinese connection really started to, I went down that rabbit hole because there's so many stories that unfortunately, because of the political situation back then, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Chinese came over here, built the railroads in California. They built from LA, basically all the way down to Sierra Blanca, and then the government said, okay, no more Chinese immigration. And so unfortunately their stories went underground, but their influence has been here in plain sight. We just had never really, explored it. Yes. Or really thought about it until I said one time, well, why, how did these things happen? And so the whole thing started with chiles toreados. So I asked people, where chiles toreados come from, and everyone will tell me, well, they're Mexican.
Right? Aren't they?
Well, where does the soy sauce come from?
Oh, snap! You're right.
And so that's how it started.
Yeah, nobody puts the connections together, right? We're just like, ooh, delicious, give me.
Right. And so when you start looking at the ingredients, you start to notice. It's like, well, where did it come from?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that the Chinese were camping only as far as they laid the rail. Mm-hmm. So if it was 100 yards, that's how much the camp moved.
Okay.
And so they had a lot of time basically spending time out in the fields, and there were obvious interactions between Mexican farmers and the people building the railroads.
Right.
So eventually they learned from each other. They saw each other, each other's cultures. They saw each other. They saw how they basically interacted, with their kinfolk, and even though there's languages, we're languages and miles and oceans apart, the family, and the way we treat family is very similar.
I can see that,
and that's human nature, like across the globe. At the core, we love our families, and we feed our families, and we show love through food.
Yes.
And I've always said,
100%.
Love is the secret ingredient. You have to love what you're doing.
Yeah.
So after, kind of diving in and seeing what history, what history books had to teach us, well, there wasn't enough there. And one time, probably about 8 years ago, I had a dinner with Mateo Herrera, who used to be my sous chef back then, and we're still friends. He's an amazing chef. We still do things together every now and then. But this particular dinner, is one of my 600 years of culinary history dinners, and we wanted to tell the story of the Chinese and how they were here in the region. And he said, let's do mushu. And I said, I've never had mushu. And he said, well, it's like pork and veggies, and go to any Chinese restaurant, you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and they're going to give you these Mandarin crepes, and you basically eat it kind of like a taco.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, cool. And I said, well, let's do that then. So he sends me a recipe for the Mandarin crepe, and it has some history. It's over 2,000 years old. They used it to feed armies because it consisted of hot water and flour, basically.
Simple.
Very, very simple ingredients. Yeah. And so that's also the reason why they were able to travel, when they were building the railroads, travel with those simple ingredients and continue to feed themselves,
right.
With something that was very old and traditional for them. And so he gave me the recipe, and I'm following the recipe, and as I'm doing the recipe, I'm like, well, where's the milk? Where's the eggs?
Yeah.
Where's the butter? It's like, I've made crepes before. This is not a crepe.
This is not adding up.
And so I was like, well, okay. I was like, I'm going to follow the recipe and see what happens. And so I continue, and I make the recipe, and it's time to put the little patties on the skillet. And so I do the first flip. I realize it's a flour tortilla, and I call Mateo and I said, hey, it's like, did I do something wrong? I said, this is a flour tortilla. And Mateo stayed quiet for a second, and he was like, you know what? He's like, I never thought about it that way.
There you go.
He's like,
You
but it
broke
kind
down.
of is.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, that's the missing link,
Yeah.
because flour tortillas are only popular along the border.
Uh-huh.
Like if you go to Mexico City,
Yeah, no.
and ask
it's
for a
corn.
burrito, you're gonna have a hard time. You'll find it eventually,
Burritos, yeah.
but like it's not the norm.
Yeah,
the
100%.
norm is a corn tortilla.
Yeah.
And not just in Mexico City, everywhere in Mexico City, everywhere around Mexico, you're gonna get the corn tortilla. So if you flash forward to the 1880s, when the railroads were coming here, Mexico had barely become a country. They were only like 60 years old, and so their food was still evolving, and food in general was still evolving, because you'll hear people talk about Southwest food as being Mexican food mixed with something else, or Tex-Mex food is something mixed with something else. But the reality is that all of those foods are Native American mixed with Spanish. And if you head down towards East Texas and into Louisiana, then you start getting Creole, which is the Native American, Spanish, French, and African. But there's that, but the way Creole food came about, Mexican food came about, and Tex-Mex food came about, and Southwest food came about. It was just a matter of the ingredients that were available in the region. And the flour tortilla is available. If you track where the popularity of these foods are, you can track it with the railroad, and you can see why California burritos, they used to make them with rice. And I used to say, why are white people ruining this Mexican food by putting rice in it? Well, it turned out that they weren't responsible for that. It was actually the way Chinese people used to eat.
That makes sense.
And then it got adapted, by the people, again, living along the railroad. And so,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Okay.
and so the argument before I found that out was people would tell me, academics would tell me, that it had to do more with the Middle Eastern migration, you know, and they didn't even consider the Chinese. And they said, oh, you know, it's because Middle East culture uses flatbread.
Yeah.
And I said, that doesn't make sense to me, because one, if it's part of your culture, you don't forget it. It's not like they forgot how to make pita bread,
Right.
and all of a sudden made a tortilla.
Right.
You know, it doesn't work that way. And then, and furthermore, going back to the Mexico City reference, if it had been Arabs or Middle Eastern, you know, migrants, then Mexico City would have invented the burrito, because there was still to this day, there's a high concentration of Middle Eastern blood. You know, they're all born in Mexico now, but back then they were actually people that were coming, you know, to the New World for new opportunities. Some were fleeing, you know, the Spanish Inquisition, and that's where you get things happening in Mexico, like the spit, which is Arab, you know, and they use it to make, you know, gyros and doner, and it's something that they use for, you know, hundreds of years. And they come to Mexico, and all of a sudden they put, you know, pork in it.
Yeah.
You know, and so hearing, you know, stories of the Spanish Inquisition and stuff like that, I was like, I wonder if that was just a way for people to hide their true religion, you know, because if they saw you with a spit, you know, the Inquisitor was going to say, you're Arab, you're not a, you know, you're not a Catholic, you know, but then they said, but I'm eating pork, you know, and so that was probably one of the ways that they used it to hide, you know, what was actually going on, because, you know, out of all the horrible things that happened through history, food is the silver lining, because food is what evolves out of those dark times. So al pastor, come on, man, how can you say that's
how can you say no? It's
you
not
know,
pastor,
and so but that's how it happened, you know,
cool.
and Mexican cuisine, you know, that's how it happened. Mexico has only been a country since 1819, so you know, they're barely 200 years old, you know, and so Mexican food is still relatively new, and it came from somewhere, but the base of it was Native American, and so that's how you have Mexican food, and that's how the Chinese with the railroad, you know, kind of ties in, you know, because they're basically living, interacting with each other for long periods of time. So eventually 1910 rolls around, there's revolution across the border, and there's a guy named Juan, I always forget his last name, Juan something, Martinez, Gonzalez, Garcia, I can't remember. But he would make, you know, his food, and in a way, in order to carry it to the soldiers, he wrapped it in these wraps, you know, that were originally, you know, mushu wraps, or it was a way for the Chinese to hold their food. And he had donkeys that he, you know, would put the saddles on and put the burritos on, and when the soldiers saw him, ahí vienen de los burritos. And the name stuck, but the influence is Chinese, right?
So I just literally heard this story a week ago, but I did not hear the Chinese influence part, you know, and like people they don't forget, they just don't know.
They don't know it,
Exactly, so I came in today to talk about food, and I'm getting a lesson too. I love this, because it all makes sense, and it's all connected, and so that's how you get Chingon-Chow.
Right.
I love it. So tell me about some of the menu items that they'll find here that will fuse those two together.
Well, obviously the mushu, we had to do mushu, since that was the dish that kind of got me, you know, going down that rabbit hole, and we have that. I'm using a tortilleria for the flour tortillas. That's they're my neighbors at Rulis. They're like 2 doors down. 2 blocks down, and it's a young couple from Villa Ahumada, and Mexican travelers that go through Villa Ahumada know that that's the best asadero. It's the best burritos.
Really?
Because the asadero is the best and the tortilla is the best.
Okay.
And so their tortilla is nice and thin, which is the closest to the original Mandarin crepe, which is also nice and thin. Now the history of the Mandarin crepe, like I said, goes back over 2,000 years. It also picked up along the way Peking duck. So Peking duck becomes the official recipe for Peking duck is like in the 1600s, and it is officially served with the pancake
with the tortilla,
right? And so
I love this.
It definitely, if you look at it from that kind of perspective, you know, that probably was the first taco.
That's
because
insane.
That's the way that they ate it.
Hold it together,
yeah,
right? And they just didn't know it was a taco.
Right, you know, they call it a crepe, and
that's awesome.
And so, and I found videos on YouTube of, you know, parents eating Mexican food, Chinese parents eating Mexican food for the first time, you know, and when they open the burrito, those one guy, it's hilarious, a funny video, but he opens it up, and he's like, oh, crepe, you know, on the translation, and when I saw that, I was like, yes, you know, well, because their history, you know, because they didn't write it down, and if they did, no one really knows what it is.
Who talks about that kind of stuff when you're writing down history
they really
lessons?
Don't.
Exactly.
And
but it's so important.
It's extremely important.
Yeah.
Because you find out, you know, that there's more to this border than we realize. Because everybody thinks, oh, well, it's Mexican food and you know, and American foods,
whatever,
you know.
and yeah.
But it's like, no, it's like we have Chinese influence. That's pretty huge in my eyes. I mean, because burritos and breakfast burritos and Tex-Mex food, they all use the flour tortilla, you know, and it's
everything.
It's a staple.
Everything here
it's
on the border,
staple.
like there's always a tortilla there.
Exactly.
And the first question, do you want flour or corn?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's just life here. It's like going to McDonald's and getting asked, do you want a jalapeno with that? Only on the border, you know what I mean?
Right.
I love it so much. That's so fascinating, Chef.
So yeah, and then that migration, you know, shifted throughout the years, but we've had the reason for sushi on the border is the maquiladoras. So maquiladoras have been operating for several decades now, starting back in the 60s, but in the early 80s, the Japanese came full force. All of the manual labor that they hired was Mexican manual labor, but as far as engineers, supervisors, office staff, they were all Japanese, and they brought their entire families here.
Okay.
The majority of them lived in Juarez because that's where the major, you know, operations were. The El Paso side was just usually warehousing and shipping. So there were some Japanese living on this side of town, but when sushi took off, it took off in Juarez first.
That makes sense because I remember being younger and everyone saying, oh, Juarez has the best sushi.
Yeah.
Before we even really had sushi here in El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's insane. Wow. Okay.
That's
crazy.
That's why you have an enclave of Japanese families, you know, that and again, like you hear stories of you know, friends that go off to college, you know, oh, you know, send me a care package, and they want tortillas and they want bread and they want, you know, they want the food that they grew up with. And so Japanese come to a new land, what do they want food that makes them feel like they're at home. And so eventually El Paso had a few legit Japanese-owned restaurants. There's only one left in town. Matsuharu is the only Japanese-owned. All of the other ones are now Korean-owned. And so now we have sushi, you know, from the 80s. But now we have Korean food, and that's been, I think Koreans have always been around, but they've really have flourished in the past probably 20 years. Yeah. And their food, you know, now we have several, you know, Korean restaurants and kimchi. Now you'll find kimchi at you know, you go to the supermarket and you'll find kimchi there, and then just the pandemic, I think, again, I like to talk silver linings, and so the pandemic, I think, opened the world's eyes to different cultures and different food, because I started seeing Korean, the Korean corn dogs.
Oh yeah.
Which are just insane, you know, from what they started out here in the U.S., you know, and so people are all about that, you know, Korean hot chicken, you know, people are all about that, and so people now want to taste those flavors. They're new and
something different, and it's gonna still be like, oh, it's spicy. I like spicy. You know what I mean? It's still gonna be able to touch those taste buds that they're used to.
They're used to.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations, for example, with Tori, who's the chef at Teriyaki, and
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Best pad thai. I compare everybody's pad thai to their.
To her. Well, she's legit.
God.
She's legit.
It's
She's
so
from Thailand.
good.
She's
really.
Yeah. She's the
that
real.
food is amazing.
Yeah. And one time we were hanging out and we were just kind of talking about dishes, and she'd tell me about a dish, and I'd say, you know what? I was like, that sounds a lot like this dish that we have in Mexico, you know, but we don't use this ingredient. We use this ingredient. And then I would start talking about some dish from Mexico, and then she'd be like, oh, we have something like that in Thailand, but we use it like this.
Yeah.
You know, and
connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots. Tamarind is like one of those ingredients that, you know, in Mexico or here on the border, you eat tamarindo. That's candy. You know, that's candy, and really, that's the only way that I knew how to eat it until I started eating, you know, Thai food, and all of a sudden they're using it, you know, as part of their sauce, and you know, and it was like
more savory, kind of
more savory than sweet, and so that, like, again, just opens it up. It's like, man, it's like we use these ingredients every day, but we just use them a little bit different, you know, and so that to me is very interesting, and what I love about all of these cultures that have moved to El Paso and have made their lives here in El Paso, you know, they're contributing to the sazon, to the taste, you know, the taste of El Paso. That's what you're getting from these immigrants.
I love it.
And so, I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying that's what Chingon Chow is.
Yeah.
You know, the panda with the sugar skull markings, obviously the Chinese and the Mexican cultures, you know, meeting together, but it's obviously more than Chinese, because we've had, you know, you mentioned just the Japanese and the Koreans and the Thais,
sure.
You know, and Fort Bliss brings so many, you know, people, Vietnamese, you know, we have so many pho places now, you know, before you could, you know, I would
like
say
one or two options.
Yeah, like 30 years ago, you would go to Singapore Cafe, you know.
Yeah.
And,
is that place still open?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I need to go there.
They moved. They used to have one on Lee Trevino, which was the first one I went to. And then the one they have on the west side moved.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. That's right.
Yeah.
They did move into that strip mall.
Right. So they're where the district is, and the.
Okay, because I was like, wait, are they there? Because I hadn't seen them in their usual spot. I see, and you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't, like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. We have some awesome food here in El Paso.
We do.
I'm telling you. And I've been coming to Rulis. When did you open downtown? Oh my gosh.
16 years ago. Over 16 years.
16 years ago. I was supposed to be here 3 years to make a coffee table book of pictures of El Paso. I was like, oh, then I was going to go to the next place. 16 years. Here we go. I love it. Well, I found you downtown. I was hooked. And to me, and I still think and talk about it, your mom's oatmeal is forever my favorite. But you know, you've gone from downtown, you have the west side, so now we're on the east side. All you loyal customers live all over, and they've asked you to open here on the east side, so now we have something fun and different. This menu is different from what you're going to find at Rulis.
Yes.
You told us about the mushu carnitas. Is there anything else that stands out to you that we just want to highlight, and just something unique? This is what you're going to find when you eat with Chef Rulis. Unique and delicious. But tell me.
I think the chicken skin taco, the chicken chicharrón, that's also a throwback to Shangri-La.
Okay.
Because Shangri-La has been in business for decades and decades. I think the first time I went, I was probably 8 years old.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's been around a long time.
Uh-huh.
And one of their appetizers is a chicken chicharrón that they sell with it's got all the ingredients of a pico de gallo, but it's marinated differently.
Sure.
So we just call it a Chinese pico de gallo,
Uh-huh.
or chile amor is what they call it actually.
Ooh, that
on
sounds
the menu.
very cool.
Yeah, a mordidas.
Yum.
But yeah, that's the nickname they have for it over there. And so that inspired this taco.
Okay.
My mom used to love the chicken skin appetizer over
Yeah.
there, and so we started making a taco. We had a taco at Rulis. But here I knew I definitely wanted to have that one.
Okay.
Because it's because Shangri-La is iconic to people that have been on the border for a long time. You know, the Shangri-La is, you know, it was the first fine dining experience that I remember. You know, and it's Chinese food, and I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, it's cheap Chinese or whatever. But no, Shangri-La was like the place. Still is.
Yeah.
You know, the place to go. They're going to take care of you. Service is amazing. You know, hospitality at its best. And so that's my little nod. You know,
That's cool.
to Shangri-La.
Yeah.
And our Thai taco.
That's different.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Again, just different flavors. But they're familiar flavors.
Yes.
Because that one has a bed of spiralized jicama and
Right.
cucumber, and so cucumber and jicama are, you know,
Staples.
They're staples for the border, and then, you know, we add some carrot and some cilantro, a sweet and spicy sauce to flavor that.
Okay.
And then the shrimp are blackened, and we put those on top with a spicy peanut sauce. Everything is made in house. Like I said, the only thing we don't make in house is the flour tortilla, and that's because my neighbors do such a great
Yeah.
job that I was like.
And you like to work with locals. Yeah.
Definitely, and they're super cool people.
That's
they're
awesome.
really,
Well,
really nice.
I need to get that information from you later because I need to go check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
Rita,
real.
Tortilleria Rita.
Oh, I love it.
They're
Ritas.
awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
And then so those, I think those two are really unique flavors. But you know, the toreado teriyaki has been a favorite
that
at
sounds-
Rulis.
yeah.
The chicken sriracha.
Okay.
Also, you know, sweet. That's what I love about Asian food, because you get sweet, but then you also get
That fire.
spicy, and then you also get, you know, the balance of those two flavors, you know, adding in a little bit of tartness, and so as far as, you know, when you bite into these things, you have all of your brain just
Yeah.
you know, because you're getting everything.
Yeah.
You know, like the toreado teriyaki, well, you got salty from the soy, you got spicy from the chilies, and then you get umami from the pork, and then you get this crisp,
The texture too.
like, well, because we do a apple slaw
Yeah.
on top of that has, you know, it's a Granny Smith, so it's nice and tangy, and it's got a little bit of sourness because of the the lime that goes in there, and so you get all of those
From the rice,
flavors
yeah.
just working
Perfectly
together.
yeah.
Yes, because like it's not one that overpowers the other. It's just like everything hits
The right combo.
the right way.
Yeah.
And Asian cuisine does that. Like
Yeah.
more than any other cuisine, I think they kind of, you know, do that. And I've always loved it since I was a kid. Tacos are my thing. I
Yeah.
used to make tacos out of everything.
Okay.
And that, but like when people ask me what's your favorite food, I'm like anything Asian.
Okay.
You know, I go for that. Because Asians also go for some weird stuff. And
Yeah. He's
the
like, I'm
only
here
way.
for it.
Hell yeah,
He's,
yeah.
that's the only way. I love it so much. Man, this is awesome. And then, of course, you can get your aguas frescas. You have a dessert. You have botanas. If you want to tell me a little bit about that stuff as well.
Sure, the churros we make in house. Like I said, everything we make in house. So we're making the churros. we inherited that machine when I bought this business.
Oh, cool.
But their churros delicious,
Yeah.
and it fits with what we're doing. We have aguas frescas, and we make those, fresh
Perfect.
and right now the fruit that's in season is so sweet. We don't even have to add sugar to it.
Oh, that's nice.
So like our water, we're right in front of a gym.
Yeah.
And so for our friends that don't want to add any sugar,
There you go.
Other than the natural stuff, they're perfect.
Yeah. Options for everybody, even vegan.
Yeah. Not by choice. Well, I kid around. But I tell people, I'm like, the only thing I hate about vegan is the word, because the word is a turnoff for everybody who is not.
Yes.
And so
It's good food that happens to be vegan.
exactly.
I hear you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because our most popular taco as of right now, we've only been open a week, but as of right now, it's our cauliflower taco.
Boom.
Well, I mean, I know why.
Yeah, there you go.
But I didn't, but I didn't do it. I didn't do it with
Because it's a vegan option, and you need to have a vegan option.
I did it because it's
delicious.
a delicious option. And
What is it? Tell us.
It's it's the cauliflower a la plancha is what it's cauliflower a la plancha is on the menu, but it's the cauliflower. We just chop it up first into steak size bits. It's seasoned with our house spices, and then we put it on the plancha to cook and sort of blacken, and so we're using other techniques, that did make their way to this area. We can talk about that another time. But there is Cajun and
oh man.
there is Cajun and Creole influence in El Paso because of the Buffalo Soldiers. So when they
we need to have another segment.
Because it's really cool. Their story is so amazing.
Yes.
I love it. And so anyway, so we blacken it, and then we serve it with just pico de gallo. We have our faux avocado sauce. It's made with squash. It tastes like avocado, but it's made with squash.
I love it.
And yeah, we had a girl yesterday who her friend took her tacos away. Because she was
you get
allergic.
bit for stuff like that.
Well, she was allergic to avocado.
Oh my god.
And so
she thought.
So she thought, and she took it. She took her tacos away, and I noticed, that she wasn't all that happy. And then she went up to order, and I had just come in, so I didn't know exactly what was going on. But then she went up to order tacos, and she's like, can you leave the avocado on the side? And I said, well, we don't have any avocado. I was like, we have faux avocado. And then she's like, explain that to me. And I said, well, it tastes like avocado. It's a cream. It's creamy. It tastes like avocado. It's like, but it's made with Mexican squash, and
That's
it's a
so
taquero
cool.
secret, from Mexico City. That's not that much of a secret anymore. And I said, but it tastes like avocado.
Yeah.
And not even, she didn't even answer me. She just turned around and looked at her friend and was like, you see, you ate my food for nothing.
You ate my food for nothing. That's hilarious.
And so she ordered food because she said, oh yeah, because she was allergic. And I was like,
how cool for her.
Yeah.
She's like, I can eat it now.
Yeah. and
awesome.
it worked out excellent for us, when we started using that sauce, because avocados are so finicky. Everybody knows, that if you don't open it on that day, then it's past its prime. And so, after throwing away, half a case, every time we ordered them because they were black or,
Yeah, it's the luck of the draw what you get.
And so it's like, so I took avocado off the menu just because I didn't want to
waste.
I didn't want to waste that.
Yeah.
No
one likes food
so
waste.
that faux avocado turned out really good because I know a lot of people that have avocado allergies. Like
Sure.
the major ones are avocado, shellfish, and peanut. And so we try and minimize, as much we can. But sometimes, especially with the Thai food, we can't get away from the peanuts. So
Sure.
So we have one taco, the Thai shrimp taco, that has all the allergens into one.
Something for everybody, right? I love it so much.
But it's cool, yeah. So and then with the churros, we will be doing, we will be adding other things to the menu.
Sure.
Right now, what was important really was, just to get open.
Yeah.
And
1
start,
week.
1 week.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
Chef.
yeah.
That's exciting. How cool.
So
we got you on the west side and the east side.
On the east side.
All your favorites, and this will quickly become your new favorite here on the east side. Come on down. Where are you located?
11360 Montwood Unit B.
Mountwood Unit B.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're right in the triangle formed by Montwood, Treywood, and George Dieter.
Yeah.
Most-
across from Chico's.
We're across from Chico's. We're in the same parking lot as Albertsons.
Yes.
Across from the gym.
Perfect.
So very centralized. It's just the east side, not far east, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
But eventually we will. I designed this concept to be small, so we can do Horizon, Far East, Northeast.
This is all of El Paso right now.
Yeah.
Clapping.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, baby Jesus. I love it. Awesome. So I know. We don't have a lot of time. There's like we could be here all day talking about food. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I want to just make sure we cover the meat and potatoes real quick. So we got the menu. We got our location. What are your days and hours?
Right now, we're waiting for our sign to go up. So we're doing Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 8.
Okay.
And Sunday, we're doing 11 to 5.
Perfect.
And once we get our sign up and we get our our beer and wine license transferred over here, then we'll start having some later hours.
Watch out, El Paso. It's
Yeah.
happening. I'm so excited. Make sure to swing on down ASAP and tell Chef Rulis I sent you. Is there anything else we want to mention?
This is an experience, the little history I told you about earlier. We are going to put it on a timeline on this big wall
cool.
over here.
Yeah.
So people will be able to read, the history of the Mandarin crepe, of Peking duck, which will eventually be one of our specials.
I can't
It's time consuming. I've done it before.
Yeah.
It's time consuming. Of course, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But that has to be like special occasions. So we'll
Sure.
probably do that. For certain holidays or things of that
There you
nature.
go.
And kind of bring, that Chinese influence
Yeah.
full circle.
And how do they follow you on social media so they can find out about everything coming up and involving with you guys?
So Chingon Chow on Instagram and Facebook. You can always follow Chef Rulis on Instagram, and those 3 sites usually will give you everything that
All
I'm
the
up to.
details.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Chef.
Well, thank you.
I hope to see you soon. El Paso, get your butts in here. You do to-go orders?
We are
delivered?
going to be. We have our phone. We're about to release it.
Okay.
We wanted to get the staff trained
Sure.
and get ready for the volume that's about to come. And so by next week we'll get the phone number out there. We are setting up our Square store, so you will be able to do online ordering.
Awesome.
And we're and through Square, I believe we're doing DoorDash.
Okay, perfect. So it's all coming. It's in the mail. And then catering. Is that?
Catering, we still do.
I love it.
Catering, we still do. We've been doing catering since we opened Rulis.
Yes.
So we still do quite a bit of that.
Beautiful.
And yeah, just excited and
Ready to see you.
yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chef. El Paso, get down here to Chingon Chow and tell him I sent you. Thank you.
Thank you.